Partnership with the UNICEF is hosting a national roundtable webinar on child killings and abuse as well as rape. The discussion forms part of National Human Rights Month, which also seeks to highlight and address gender-based violence. Let's take you live to that webinar.
Our UNICEF country representative, social development colleagues, my colleagues online, viewers at home, Niskim Sam Sonke, Abandwana, I greet you this morning. I'm not good in writing speeches, I'm always led by the Holy Spirit. But this morning I just received notices from the Facebook that I must not try to come here and cover up crime or justify crime using the Holy Scriptures. They've requested me to be realistic as much as possible. I fully agree with my colleague in Vembe that there are pastors who are performing these rituals, killing innocent children. And I think that is high time that we make use of that report at national level. Program Director, I'm here to represent the following organizations: Faith-Based Child Protection Movement, Church Leaders Council of South Africa, Sanarela, the national network of religious leaders who are living and affected by HIV, the Pentecostal Bishops Council of South Africa, Men's Sector, Men's Parliament in particular, including Azal Healthcare. Umama Mhlawuli secele uxolo by issuing an apology as Amakhosi, and I think I must follow suit. As faith leaders, we really apologize for this mess we find ourselves in. We apologize. We knew, Professor Nduli, that some colleagues within the faith sector are corrupt and they are practicing these rituals, and we are apologizing to South Africans. We will make sure that these criminals are isolated and exposed. Not so long ago, we were requested by our government, especially social development and UNICEF, to intervene in our communities. And I must be honest with you, we did not know what to do. Because when it comes to fighting gender-based violence, you have to leave your pulpit and be on the streets. And some of us are trained to deliver the word of God in this pulpit. So we had to reach out to UNICEF, and some of our pastors were trained, including other faith-based organizations in Cape Town. About 70 pastors of faith leaders in Cape Town who were trained around issues of children. And we really appreciate UNICEF, because since then, we went on engaging each other as faith leaders throughout the country. As we speak, we're busy finalizing a manual in partnership with faith-based child protection movement and UNICEF. We're finalizing a manual, a tool that can be used in different communities around the country, training faith leaders. Of course, in partnership with Takwaneri Ime Men's Movement. Minister and colleagues, as faith leaders, we commit ourselves that sizakusebenzisana, and we're behind you, Minister and colleagues, especially UNICEF and social development, Namakhosi, we are pledging this morning that we'll work together, but we must also acknowledge the damage. Some of our pastors recently appeared in courts, found guilty of killing children, raping children, and the Meglenda Aunje with this collar. I'm so embarrassed. I'm so ashamed even to be called a pastor. Uguti, some of us misusing the word of God, going out there, misleading people, manipulating our communities, because sifuna kukhula amabandla through these rituals. We really apologize, but we'll make sure, as these organizations, including Council of Churches in provinces, we'll make sure that we don't protect criminals. We'll make sure that our churches are not used to protect criminals. We'll expose them. We know that some of these people are using religion, that using religion to manipulate innocent lives in our societies. Social development, please, when we meet in that parliament with traditional leaders in a form of a men's parliament, we talk a lot about things that needs to be done, but when we leave that parliament, we don't even action one. And it's high time that we practice what we preach. We agreed as this country that we need to activate street champions throughout South Africa, where we make sure, even if it's 4 or 6 men, just to take care of our streets. And by doing so, we will know that in that house, there's something going on there every Fridays. So we need really partners to come and support us. We'll be going to traditional leaders in conclusion. We'll be going to traditional leaders in all traditional authorities in a form of a traditional men's parliament. We need your support. We can't be having these talk shows all the time and implement nothing. Lastly, as bishops and archbishops, including apostles, we'll make sure that never, never again preside over child marriages in this country. And we'll go far as making sure that we don't ordain criminals who are coming to this country and disguise as pastors. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. We'll continue to support this department. Thank you, Program Director.
Thank you, Baba Jess. That was very emotional. Hearing it coming from a father, it really touched me. I hope it also touched the nation here. We really want to thank you for standing for our children. We want to thank you for saying that not in our name. We want to thank you for saying that we as the religious sector will stand for the rights of our children and we will protect our children. But we also want to thank you that you did not end up there. You became part of the solution. You are part of quite a number of interventions and programs, and you are leading that. I was touched by the fact that you are also at the forefront of ensuring that you train the other religious leaders. We thank you, and we heard your call when you said that let's stop the talk show, but let's action out. Thank you very much. May I please also proceed and call Professor T. Ntuli, who is the Commission for the Promotion and Protection to Cultural, Religious, and Linguistic Communities' Rights. I wanted to get it right because in the beginning, I wanted to clarify that. Who's going to talk, on combating violence against children, in particular, the child killings, the rape and abuse. Professor Ntuli, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. And through you, Chair, I would like to thank the Minister of Social Development for organizing this. The panelists who have given us a lot to think about and also to feel about. I come from a commission for the protection and promotion of the rights of cultural, religious, and linguistic communities. So that everything that affects our religion, our language, as well as our culture becomes our mandate. We work very closely with the House of Traditional Leaders because when we carry out issues like gender-based violence, customary marriages, the first people we go over to Abakosi together with Iziduna, and then we meet with the community itself to find out what the community itself feels about what is happening. For instance, we have to go to a community to find out about the issues of child rape, child murder, child abuse. Where does it fit, within the culture? Then we realize that our very cultures themselves are extremely compromised. And once the culture is compromised, then the family is the very first one to be affected by it. And once the family is, then members of the family are going to suffer. Hence, the children, that suffer. So, in our job, when we meet up with the communities, we ask them particular questions, how they answer those questions kind of culturally, and then ask them as to what do they see happening, right now. Are their cultures still alive or not? But now, what has happened now in terms of combating gender-based violence and violence against children, the issues of rape, we work with these communities and discover that some of them have got kulumandota, masculinity groups. Others have got the systems of amaqiza, where young women mentor younger girls or how to behave and to be protected. All of the protective means for the protection of our children are embedded in our cultures. That is why, therefore, it is important that this Chapter 9 institution, called the Commission with a long name, has to emphasize, culture at each and every stage that it does. So what happens then in a community? When a child is born in an indigenous African community, the umbilical cord does not stay in hospital. The umbilical cord stays attached to the child, and the child will crawl with that umbilical cord until it automatically falls. Where it falls, you pick up that umbilical cord, and a tree is planted to link the child, to the tree. And whoever sees the umbilical cord drop, that person is the luckiest, person who's going to be blessed by God and also blessed by the ancestors, because that person cares for children, has been watching the safety of that children. So we need society, therefore, to act like that a person who watches the child as it learns to crawl, dragging its umbilical cord. That's what our commission role, is. We also work very closely with the religious community, as well as the police. We have begun now that when we get into a community, police have become a very vulnerable, source for they deal with everything that we actually deal with from different, perspectives, and then we are in a position, to learn. In cases such as this, sometimes we also recommend some of the cases to go straight to the South African Human Rights Commission if it involves individuals. But our take is a broader culture, and that those individuals operate within that culture. So the speaker from the traditional house, who spoke very well, also brought up the issues of patriarchy. Patriarchy plays also a very significant role in this, and it has got to be combated in the same way as we are combating the issues of gender-based violence that have got no place in it. Our children are the future of our culture, our religion, our language. They are future of our spirits, they are future of our everything that which we are. That's why in the Bible they say, suffer the children to come to me, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. And then by killing actually the children, we are also tainting and destroying the very citadels of our belief systems. I thank you.
Antuli, thank you very much. Thank you also emphasizing that we're just like a body and we cannot function without each other. You mentioned quite a number of stakeholders that you're working very closely with, of which without them, you won't be able, to function. So I am happy that we all agree that for us to fight this monster, we need to work together. We need to collaborate. And thank you for shedding light, in terms of the areas that you have mentioned. Without any further ado, I will call, Minister talked about nothing about them without them. The children are here. The children are wounded, and we're going to hear from the children. We're having children who are going to talk. We've got Naledi Nkanyeza from World Vision, but she will be followed also by Nongeba Theodora Mhlaulu, who will be virtual, but also by Londiwe Sibande, who will also be virtual, and Laura Maleme, who will also be virtual. But we'll hear from Naledi. Naledi, the stage is yours, baby girl.
Good day, everyone. My name is Nkanyezi. I am from Orange Farm, and I'm here representing millions of South African kids who cannot dream, talk, or be happy. Not because they are not able to, but because people will not let them live. To us, violence is a normal that we do not like, and it is not life. We want a normal. We want to be children in a normal society. I do not know how adults look at violence. But for us children who experience it, who are affected by it, it is unfair and unacceptable. Killings of children is happening in different parts of South Africa, and this threatens the possibility of a bright future for us. It is a shame that this is still happening in the 21st century while South Africa has power to stop it. There are millions of South African kids deprived of their right to life, married at a very young age, trafficked and raped. We are tired of hoping the situation to change, but it is only getting worse. We celebrate 16 days of activism, Human Rights Day, Day of the African Child, Day of the Girl Child every year, but nothing is changing. Instead, the situation gets worse. What is it that we have done to deserve this? We are children, just like your own children, just as you were once a child. Honorable Minister, we are wondering, what crime have we committed? Is our crime being children? Is it the reason why we are forced to be adults in our childhood? We understand you have made efforts as government to change the situation, but we think much more needs to be done to end children's killings and other forms of violence targeted at children. Your decision to call us here today affects our future. We need more than hopes and promises on paper. We need action on a bigger scale. It is important that you take our lives more seriously by keeping your commitments as government and making investments in children as your top priorities. Children belong to the state, remember. At least the Bill of Rights in the Constitution says. We therefore today call on government of South Africa to provide us with safe spaces to live, quality primary health care and education, as well as improved child protection systems. South Africa needs to change. It cannot change itself. It is me. It is you. It is all of us who have to bring that change. Let us become the first generation that decides to be the last to see violence against children. We say it takes the world. It takes all of us. It takes South Africa and it takes me and you to end violence against children. I thank you.
What is it that we have done to deserve the crime? What crime have we committed? That's what he said. If I quote her verbatim, what crime have we committed? Is it being a child a crime? I think all of us must think about it. What crime have we committed? Is it being a child a crime? Let's stop the talk show and make sure that we action out. I will call Noneba Theodora Mhlauli, who is virtually, to also talk on behalf of other children.
Go ahead. Okay. Good morning to the panel. Good morning, everybody. Good morning to the children that we have, and thank you, Ganyezi, for everything that you've just said. I completely agree with it. I'd like to give gratitude for my presence from the social development and the invitation received from the Tech Clinic in Soweto, Protea North, especially by Faith and Fomo. Raising a child or children during these current challenges of GBV and violence against children in South Africa is a sad reality. I am a mother to two, and I am a mother to the village as a whole, because it takes a village to raise a child. I cannot just say, as Unongeba Mhlauli, I'm a mother to Untsigelelo Nonkanyezi Mhlauli. In South Africa, sexual orientation, religion, and environmental recognition, like the awareness, is not giving much platform as it should be. This, as a mother, seems to be a failure on its own, as it gives a child some entitlement of awareness that should always be given to the child. And I'll also touch on indaba poverty and neglect. Abantwana being rejected by their parents, especially the fathers, and there are mothers that neglect their kids. This can try to be of significance when it comes to taking ownership or responsibility of their offspring. This will immensely minimize the need of wanting to belong. This will minimize our kids being lured into monetary entitlement or to be acquisitive of money and materialistic items. The discipline and prohibition of physical punishment, that discipline corrects misbehavior, whereas corporal punishment is used to get rid or it stops some certain behaviors, zabantwana. A certain behavior which can be could be written off. It's always influenced by the punishment, which this makes the violence be perpetuated. It motivated or it builds umntwana to become a bully of a child, even at school. As a corporal punishment, it perpetuates a community of young, ill-mannered beings. Yes, tina sikhule ngayo, but at the times that we are, everything iba civilized. There's so much change taking place. Sikhule ngayo, but now our kids, a corporal punishment perpetuates a community of ill-mannered beings who become so much bullies at school. And through this, violence iba so much umntana ukhula ngeviolence, umntana abona ukuthi entitled to do izinto ezirong through violence. Uyabetha, uyaqhwaba when afuna imali or a pen instead of asking nicely and being polite. This is mirrored by the child from the upbringing as a unit. As I stated, it takes a village to raise a child or an individual at home. But whatever we are doing as parents, Jingumtana self as I'm a young healer, I'm a young South African traditional healer, I'm still learning. Hence, I always reach out to social development, or I have to reach out to the neighbors to say, I can't be always correct. What is it that is wrong that I'm doing to my child? Should I be spanking the child? Should I be sparing the rod? And whereas there are certain things to do just to motivate umntwana, because it goes back to uthando, the foundation phase yomntwana. Is umntwana given so much love? Is umntwana heard? Make time to sit down umntwana and just listen, because this will bring the outcome of brutal killings and molestation, exploitation even by the family members, our uncles, our aunts. So I'm humbled and impressed that there are many campaigns that are put in place and to minimize the increase of GBV and violence as a whole in South Africa. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mama. Let me correct, it's not a child, it's a mother who's representing the mother, Umzali okhulisa umntwana. Is giving us some tips. We used to do things in a certain way that were acceptable during that time by the society. But now we have to ensure that we change the way we are doing things and the way we are raising our kids. Thank you very much for also ensuring that you give us the effects of the corporal punishment. What is it that we get, in future when we apply the corporal punishment? Thank you, Ma. I'm introducing the second child who is on video, virtual also, Londiwe Sibande. Yes, Londiwe.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Londiwe Sibande from Isolo. As a child, I've seen many things in life about abuse. It is hard to leave your home or stay in a place where you are always abused. We always live in fear. We are scared of what will happen next. We cannot even go out to jog or even go to town alone because we don't know if we are next. It is painful to see a child being abused. As we stay here at Uzelo, some of us were abused back at home. We said to be away from our families, and it affects our studies and ultimately our school results. The rights we have as children are not a reality in our world. We always live in fear and anxiety. Any form of abuse, may be physical, sexual, or psychological, is detrimental to the effective growth of children and will have a negative impact on a child's future relationship. We can never have a healthy relationship, especially with male figure. As children, we would like the government to have stricter policy and regulation regarding the conviction and perpetration. As children, we would like the government to have stricter policies and regulation regarding the conviction of perpetrators of gender-based violence. We have 51% of women who have experienced gender-based violence and 76% of men saying that they have perpetrated gender-based violence at one stage of their lives. The statistics are shocking and a true indication that we as children and women are by no means safe in South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our children live in fear. They are caged. They cannot be children. There is no safe place for them. We need to really make a reflection on ourselves. Every one of us. It's really sad. What type of children are we raising? You can imagine a fearful child. You know, it really kills the self-esteem of a child, self-confidence. It's really scary. We really need to do something about it. It's not a joke. Let me call Olora Maleme to come in and address us.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Laura Maleme. I'm 17 years old. I come from Rustenburg in West Province, but I currently staying at the Ramokhaji Children's Castle. As per our topic today, my opinion is that the violence affects children in their communities. Violence causes children from all for these children we experience bullying. Children can also develop a low self-esteem. Children become a victim of children adoption and rape, and others are being killed by their perpetrators. Children may be left as orphans and live in poverty if parents are killed during crime. Children may develop anger when they witness violence in their homes. Sometimes children have to be separated from their family due to domestic violence, and that may cause stress and depression. Children may commit suicide or reduce to drug abuse and gangsterism. A solution for my government to create more education and awareness through the different media platforms about the impact of violence on children. The government may ensure that there are full-time social workers based in school to render therapy to children who are the victims of violence and education programs to those who develop violence behavior. To develop more critical activities, especially in disadvantaged communities, to help children avoid participating in criminal activities. Children request police to patrol parks, bus stops, and around school all the time. There must be a harsh sentence for criminals. I thank you.
Thank you, Laura. I think the children echo the same sentiment. This pandemic has got, effects on them. We wonder why we have so many children that are involved in drugs, that are exploring alcohol at an early stage and other, harmful substances. And we normally blame it on them, but we don't make a reflection on ourselves. They are calling on us, to protect them. They are calling on us to intensify our interventions, to create those safe environments for them, to create an enabling environment for them, to grow up as children. That will be the future of our country. We have concluded, the messaging on children. Now we will get into the two speakers. They will come, after each other. We've got the director of Teddy Bear Foundation and the CEO of World Vision South Africa. They'll be giving the message of support in terms of, interventions and services rendered to children and families. And these are our child protection organizations that we are working with. Dr. Shahida Omar, you are the first to start, and you'll be followed by Mr. Bruce Laser. Mr. Bruce is with us here at the studio. Thank you.
Morning. I come with universal greetings to all through you, Program Director, Honorable Minister, representatives of UNICEF, and esteemed and valued colleagues at DSD. I would like to just start with, where does violence begin? Violence, we know, and as we experience, starts in the home, where young children are most at risk of physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, abandonment, and even murder, as has been discussed earlier and described, the horrific killings of children that we are witnessing on a daily basis. Understanding how patterns of violence change across the course of life enables us to adopt a proactive approach to violence prevention. So intervening early before patterns of violence become entrenched, we are busy working with prevention and intervention. And we know that the effects of violence extends into adulthood, where limited emotional support, substance abuse, and violence may compromise relationships and parenting abilities. It is therefore essential to intervene as early as possible to break that intergenerational cycle of violence. So what are we doing at the Teddy Bear Foundation, working in partnership with other NGOs, other community-based organizations, with DSD most certainly, who are, of course, one of the key supporters of reaching out in terms of intervention and prevention. We work on a level of primary prevention, and this is working with children, looking at building their self-esteem, and working with parents, looking at promoting positive forms of discipline. Then on the secondary prevention is ensuring the safety of the child, ensuring that the child has access to resources where there's an immediate response to violence, ensuring the safety and risk assessments and forward planning for the child. The tertiary prevention, which is short and long-term interventions where we're looking at reducing trauma and working with both victims and offenders, trying to disrupt that pattern of intergenerational violence. And we realize that working together rather than using the blame game, because often we're always resorting to blaming, naming, and shaming. We need to work together and actually use the same game. And collaboration in terms of harmonizing content. So working with best practice models and learning from each other is critical to support children and families across the lifespan. The one thing I think I want to just emphasize is that we are using at the Teddy Bear Foundation a child-centered and child-centric approach, hearing, as you heard from the children, in the child's own words, in children's own voices, where they have a right to participate and ensure that they can express their views and that they are heard and that they are taken seriously, assists with violence prevention. I think just looking at our programs of what we've done, not only during COVID-19 2020, but something that we've learned lessons along the way is in terms of information dissemination, where leaflets have been distributed in the indigenous languages, community dialogues, using every platform, whether it's standing outside in a community, standing on taxi corners, using faith-based platforms. So these have been platforms where we've engaged people and looked at crime prevention dialogues, engaging both boys and men, not just working with the girl child and women, but working with boys and men and analyzing values and attitudes, looking at the social norms, the gendered norms, and transformation, where when one looks at stereotyping roles and responsibilities, whose role is it to wash dishes? Whose role is it to look after the child, or responsibilities? And of course, reflecting on that, but working with children from a very young and tender age, not just working with adults, because it is an ecological framework. So also going onto community radio stations, using visual media, where we've provided opportunities on YouTube, so your social media platforms, and providing promo material and having engagement with people on different platforms. So, and the programs at schools that we've been actively engaged with is the Safe Talks, where we look at rights and responsibilities, and again with children there, analyzing their values and attitudes, dispelling and debunking myths and misperceptions and conceptions. And of course, working with educators as well, where we're training educators to look out for child abuse and how to manage, how to report, but also to support and make an appropriate and timeous referral. And I think something that we've also been working with is our faith-based organizations, as I mentioned before, but also the healthcare facilities where visits are made to antenatal clinics and support is provided both to a pregnant mother on how best to take care, nurture herself, nurture the coming baby, and also access to resources and support facilities. So in general, I think the approach is a comprehensive approach. It's an integrated approach, but it's also, I think what we need to realize is that we need to work with each other, share with each other, exchange with each other. And something that I would like to end on is that silence is violence, and we have to break that silence. But we need to continue working in a coordinated fashion, not in silos and not fragmented. So working with government departments, working with other NGOs, other resources out there where we can then collectively make an impact. Thank you.
Was it Pogo? 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 Okay.
So, Honourable Minister, who's no longer here, but I'm sure will no doubt listen to this, to my fellow panelists, to the ladies and gentlemen that are here, but most importantly, to the children that have spoken today, as well as the children that will hopefully see this on other platforms. This is about you. I've just been sitting reflecting and looking at the title of this round table we're having and wondering how many of us have felt anger.
Okay, and we dip out of those proceedings to bring you this story.